So here I am, 58 years old. More than ever, I believe that this world is not what we're told. I certainly have now concluded and agree wholly with Eric Dubay and others that anyone with the slightest degree of intelligence will come to gather and make their own mind up, of course, but they'll gather the evidence first and then analyse the evidence and check it out. And boy, the evidence is checkable. You can check it out. We live on a flat earth. Okay? Gravity is simply a theory, it's nothing else. The sun and the moon are not millions of miles away, or hundreds of thousands in the case of the moon, but certainly millions of miles away for the sun. No. They are within our firmament. Okay, and the sun and the moon are the same size, and they go round and round the garden like a teddy bear above our heads. The earth is still as a beautiful level glass of water. And you can look at the water and it is still. That is our oceans. There is no Antarctica. What you think is Antarctica is a group of ice below you southwards. Is not. Antarctica is an icy wall that surrounds you 360 degrees. 360 degrees around you, you are surrounded by ice. An ice wall. That is Antarctica. The North Pole is about 35 miles in diameter, and it is plus 4 degrees centigrade. It is only 4 degrees. It's chilly, but it's certainly not. You can visit it, and it's like having a day out playing snowballs. 4 degrees is a typical average temperature of the North Pole. Okay. We are rock solid static. Flat as a pancake, surrounded by a seawall, and the firmament, which is a glass dome above us that keeps our atmosphere in, is known about, yet hidden. Within the firmament, under the firmament, are the sun and the moon, and they rotate within the firmament. They are within the firmament. The sun and the moon are not in outer space. They are above our heads. And the sun travels and rotates, it goes around and around the garden a little bit faster than the moon. And 3 times a year, get this, it overtakes the moon and we get eclipses. Can't believe that, can you? Well, at the age of 58, it's taken me that long to accept it fully and absolutely convince myself. But if you convince someone against their will, they're going to be of the same opinion still. Well, there is so much evidence pointing to the fact that we are lied to. Nothing surprises me with these anymore, these lot. NASA stands for never a straight answer. NASA. Never a straight answer. They've got an answer for everything, haven't they? It might surprise you to know that oil has never seen life. It is an abiotic solution produced by the earth below us. And it is produced so fast by the earth below us that we cannot possibly consume it fast enough to make it run out. So this falsity, this falsehood that has been thrust upon us by the industry, who says one day oil will run out, we need alternative energy, but we must charge a fortune for petrol. Oh really? Oil has never been a dinosaur. or ancient woodlands. Prehistoric. Never. Okay. There is no vacuum in space. It's another thing that we are expected to swallow. The firmament separates the waters below from the waters above. There are no planets as you perceive them or you're taught at school how they are. Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, yada yada yada. They're just gas balls, folks. Okay? And these gas balls are floating around in water. Remember, as above, so below. You cannot, and we cannot, get through the firmament, and heaven knows America shot 160 odd missiles to break through the firmament and failed miserably. Our stars are not external, they are on the firmament, and the firmament rotates. And the way to prove that is stand up and look for the pole star, and it'll remain looking at you in a position of perfection, and the others will rotate around it. But you're not rotating around it. The firmament is rotating around a central star, the pole star. Do time-lapse photography and point it at the pole star, and all the other little gems will rotate. It's the firmament that's rotating. Okay. So, I know I've said a lot in this video, and you think, my God, the guy's lost the plot. But I can tell you, there is so much evidence now, if you look for it, that we are lied to. Day one. Now the big question, of course, is, what about aeroplanes? Well, what about aeroplanes? I've got a pilot's license. I know that when I'm flying along at 6,000 feet, and I've got a distance ahead of me of maybe 200 miles, I don't have to push forward on the control stick, the yoke, constantly to take into account the curvature of the Earth. No, 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 no. I remain at 6,000 feet on a horizontal plane, excuse the pun, and my attitude of my aeroplane doesn't dip down to compensate all the time. You don't get international air traffic like airliners at 30,000 feet, 36,000 feet, pushing forward on the stick constantly to take account of their curvature. But hey, you can't even mention that. But what about the ball underneath us rotating? It isn't rotating at 1,600 miles an hour. It is absolutely rock solid. The land is horizontal, it's flat, and it's not moving. Oh, it's perfect for pilots. The ones that don't tell lies. And aren't under this misguided impression, if you're an airline pilot and you mention this, you're out of a job. You're ridiculed. You're thought stupid. Of course, the Earth's rotating. No, no, no. There is no Coriolis effect. You navigate with straight lines. If, for example, my fist is the Earth and it's a ball, shall we pretend, and it's rotating at 1,600 miles an hour, and I'm on this Earth, and I hover in a helicopter, and I don't move forward, and the Earth rotates below me at 1,600 miles an hour. Perhaps then, when I'm hovering, I can let some land come towards me, and then land when I reach my destination. Job done. I haven't moved forward at all. That's the theory, but it doesn't happen. Helicopters have to get up and move forward like aeroplanes do. Okay? There is no Coriolis effect at all. You phone your friend from UK to Australia, and I guarantee you your friend is standing vertically. His head isn't rushing down to his blood isn't rushing down to his head. You'd think you'd mad as a hatter if you thought him upside down, but if you believe the textbooks, he's got to be upside down compared to you from England to Australia. He must be upside down if he's on a ball. Do you see how ludicrous it all is? This is the BS that we're all expected to believe. How very dare they expect us to be that dumb? But we are. Oh, we are putty in their hands. At the age of 5, you will believe this if you know it's good for you. Don't even think about trying to square the circle, as they say. Well, it's not rocket science to work out that the circumnavigation of the world has been done so many times by so many sailors. East to west or west to east. Nobody's gone north to south and south to north. Alarm bells. Do you know why? Because there isn't a north to south. Is there? There isn't. You can't get somebody setting off from the North Pole and going any direction will be south for that, and off they shoot. They go, oh, bye, he's going over the hill now, look Charlie, off he goes, hooray, see you in 6 months. Maybe. You turn round, they should be coming up towards you when you see them again, shouldn't they? They don't. Because nobody can go north to south to north on a circumnavigation. It doesn't work. Because the moment you try to go so far forward from your starting point, you hit an ice wall. Your options are go left or go right. You certainly cannot go over it. So you ultimately end up doing circumnavigation, east to west or west to east. And you follow the little sea wall all around you that surrounds this earth that we're standing on, this flat earth. Okay, so the big question is, why the lie? Because until, medieval times, of course, and the Catholic Church came along and the Jesuits and all came along, and it was Copernicus time, wasn't it? And it was perfectly acceptable. Most people would know that when they're born, they're standing still. I haven't got 1600-mile-an-hour winds in my face if we're spinning around. No, I can know that the lake I'm looking at is completely still like glass in an evening. The seas are horizontal, left to right and right to left. I just have to hold my finger straight and follow the line and know that that sea is not curving from one horizon to another. Oh, but you can see the curve. No, you can't. You see, I can stand on a beach, they say, and watch a ship go over the curve, out of sight. But I can stand on the same beach with my Nikon P900 and watch the ship disappear as well. But then I can zoom it back in. From out of sight back to a full frame on my camera. And if it had gone round the corner, how could I possibly get the boat back in frame? It's all a question of line of sight, isn't it? And perspective. That's all it is. If you stand next to a huge big telegraph pole and look down a row of 500 telegraph poles, trust me, the telegraph poles as they go away from you get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And eventually the final telegraph pole that you could possibly see disappears. It's gone round a corner. No, it hasn't. It's your perspective that is shrinking. It isn't the telegraph pole that is sinking into the mud or going around the curve, because telegraph poles don't move. That's a newsflash. So why all this deceit? Well, it's very straightforward. It's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory, I grant you. It is a conspiracy to control the minds of men. And if you can convince the minds of men and women that they live on a ball and get it imposed on us, because flat earthers were tortured, discredited, we even are today, by the masses who are so mind controlled by the propaganda and the threats and the ridicule. Oh, okay, yeah, we live on a ball. It makes no odds to me. It makes an enormous difference to me to know that I think for myself. Thanks very much. I can do the maths, I can do the science, I can do common sense. And it seems the majority of those that surround me still have a problem with that one. It is common sense, but sadly the common sense just ain't that common. And it remains that way. You see, if you want to control the masses, you first lie to them. And most people say, well, that's nonsense, don't be ridiculous, it's a lie, you're a liar. But tell it often enough and make sure the lie is big enough. Over a long period of time, under the threat of death and ridicule, if you don't comply, you'll die or you'll be ridiculed. Take your pick. And ultimately all the scientists decided to recant their belief that we live on a flat plane, as is correct, and rather than die and have liquid lead poured down their throats by the Jesuits and the Catholic Church, would comply. Otherwise they'd be striked from history. They would be gone from the history books. Well, they're all turncoats and they're liars. You see, anybody with any credibility in the scientific community has got to believe the Earth is a ball. There we are. What about NASA? Well, what about NASA? Never a straight answer. They can't decide, whether the ball is an oblate, a pear shape, oblate shape, or it's a ball. And we've been to the moon. No, we haven't. Don't be ridiculous. When do we allegedly go to the moon then? In the 1960s, when we barely had calculators, we had abacuses and the mechanical ones at the time. Do you remember those things? I had one at school, a mechanical calculator. Yes, I'm really old. I'm that old. I remember the first electronic calculators. We used to make silly little words up and turn it upside down. It says hello. And things like this. And yes, I remember. Commodore calculator it was. And you're telling me at that stage we could put a man on the moon? Oh, really? Not at all. Nope. But if you want the video proof and the film footage, oh, I'm sorry, it's all that evidence and history has all been, we've lost it. It got mislaid. All the technical data, because we could design the whole thing again, but oh bloody hell, they've thrown all the research paper and the designs away. I have to start again. What a lot of nonsense. I'd also tell you that there are no satellites going round our Earth. There are no satellites going round our Earth. Any satellite you perceive to be a satellite is suspended, and it is up there being hung by a huge helium balloons, and they are serviced on a regular basis by aircraft that are based in Antarctica, which you cannot get near. Those aircraft occasionally, because the satellites are stationary above your head, hang from a huge helium balloon the size of 2 or 3 football pitches. That's why they're stationary. And sometimes these multi-billion-pound satellites go wrong, and they have to be brought down for servicing. And the aeroplanes in Antarctica take off. They're Charlie 130 aircraft. They're quite big, and like Hercules. and they get a hook at the back and they hook this wire and pull the satellite back into the aircraft, and they deflate the helium, the balloon, and they take it back to Antarctica for servicing, and then they fix it. And do you know what they'll do then? They'll reinflate that helium balloon, it'll take up the satellite, and then an aircraft will reposition the satellite to where it should sit above the Earth on a flat plane. There are no satellites bombing around. What a lot of nonsense. Another lie. Well, I've said enough. For now. You either think I'm a complete moron, or you think there's something in what I say. But trust me, it's taken me 58 years to figure this out, and I don't want you to make the same mistake of teaching your children absolute BS, passing the parcel from one idiot to another. At least think for yourself. Start by standing outside and wondering why it is on a still day, not a breath of wind, how it is that you're apparently travelling at 1600 miles an hour without a breath of air going past your face, how a little insect can hover from one plant to another getting nectar, or the little hummingbird can fly to such precision to get his beak or her beak into the stem of a plant to get the nectar. Such precision. And yet we're supposed to be rocking around this universe at 1600 miles an hour rotating. And we're travelling through space, winding around the sun like a snake at phenomenal speed. Well, the last time I went fly fishing for trout on a reservoir, it was like glass, not a movement. If I saw a mayfly hatch at 50 yards and watch a trout without a ripple on the water, how can we possibly, just that one thing, say, how can we possibly be travelling at 1600 miles an hour without a ripple on the water? You try carrying a glass of water upstairs as gently as you can, and you will get a ripple. I hope I've gone on long enough to convince you and maybe nudge you into checking out to see if you too have been lied to since you had lamb and mint sauce thrust upon you. I'm not going to swallow that. Take care. Maybe catch you tomorrow if my channel isn't banned.
Aí ó, satélite caiu aqui na Jacami. Tá vendo o globo? O globo. E aí, globo? Olha o balão. O paraquedas tá pra cá, ó.